Well, hello, podcast listeners, and welcome. Welcome to another episode of the Doctor's Corner podcast show. I am your host, Dr. K, a proud United States Navy veteran. And on this show, I'm committed to acknowledging this nation's military and veteran population while informing them of resources specifically designed for them, as well as encouraging nationwide literacy, because only half of U.S. adults can read above the 8th grade reading level. And we won't even begin to talk about the host of life limitations associated with illiteracy. Today, I would like to introduce you to a young man who served 32 years in the United States Marine Corps, and although retired, continues to serve his brothers and sisters in arms through his current workplace assignment as the Veterans Education District Coordinator for the State of Texas Veteran Commission. Today, Mr. Dwiggins will share how veterans can access their educational benefits. Welcome to the show, Mr. Bill Dwiggins. Please share a little bit about yourself with the TDC listeners.
Well, I was born in Tuskegee, Alabama, to Dr. Horace Greeley Dwiggins, and the head of the VA in Tuskegee, Alabama, and his beautiful wife, my mother, Miss Maddie Olivia Bird. A little background on them is my mom's great-grandfather is Admiral Byrd. My father was one of the medical doctors, we call it in present-day terms, the flight surgeon for the famed Tuskegee Airmen in Tuskegee, Alabama. So I didn't understand the significance of both of my parents' background when I was young, but it really kind of set the foundation as I matured to an adult, the significance of their place in time and history, with the significance of women and people of color for what they accomplished and how they instilled upon me the great pride and heritage that was part of the legacy that I and my brothers, we were meant to carry on. So as far as being a servant to the public and to people, it was a way of life. That's how I grew up. Unfortunately, when I was very, very young, probably about 4 or 5, my father passed, and my mom was still relatively young.
Wow.
But as God always has a plan, my stepdad, who's really, my father figure for all of my life, came into our lives as a fighter pilot. He was in the Air Force at the time, and when he was stationed at Tuskegee Institute, head of Commandant of Air Force Cadets, he met my mom. She was the Dean of Admissions for Tuskegee Institute, and they spent 30-plus years together before my mom passed 7 years ago. But he is still around kicking. He is also a legacy fighter pilot, retired general in the United States Air Force, the head of aircraft procurement for NASA, president of Texas Southern, and he's my guiding rod. That I spend at least part of my day, each and every day, in his presence. As once your parents are gone, they're gone, and he's 88. We moved because my dad spent 30 years in the Air Force, and so I had a good fortune of traveling quite a bit as an Air Force dependent. And college and not going to college was not an option as far as my parents were concerned. They were very, very pro about knowledge being the power. And education was one of the struggles that people of color fought for from the time they were placed in bondage and servitude to a master. The education was your key of not only having physical presence, but having intellectual presence, which gave you tremendous power, and it still does. Our motto is knowledge is power, so I live by that and strive each and every day to gain just a nugget more of intellectual understanding of the world that we live in, and that's what I live by. So it's a much more in-depth story about all the things that I've done and where I've lived, where I've gone to school, and who I've had the opportunity to meet over my lifetime. But I didn't know there was anything but military. Again, my dad spent 30 years in, and then I spent 32, so that lets you know that I've only had maybe about 5 or 6 years where I have not been in uniform or been in an environment that was militarily structured. And thus I went from college into the military. My dad wasn't too happy I went in the Marine Corps, as he says. Being in the Air Force was where it was supposed to be, but I wear glasses, and he had instilled if you can't be a fighter pilot, don't go in, and the rest of the family jokes about that. But I was able to make my way through the Marine Corps. I enlisted in 78 and was able to matriculate from a private to a colonel when I finally retired. And I had the great fortune of traveling all over the world. The only place that I did not have the opportunity to go in uniform was what used to be the old Soviet Union bloc. But otherwise, I had been just about everywhere, and I couldn't have been more happy with my life decisions because of serving in uniform and just the absolutely phenomenal people I was able to meet during and through my travels because of serving in uniform. And it was just an unbelievable opportunity. I would have never fathomed anything being so wonderful as having served and being poor doing it. But yet I have the riches of the world from my experience that no amount of money could ever amount to. Having those opportunities to eat foreign foods, walk on foreign lands, be where history of this world was made and is continuing to be made. So,
what a notable footprint that you and your family is leaving here on Earth. It's an honor. It's an honor to do this show with you. So I appreciate you participating in today's podcast. Can you tell the listeners about your role as the Veteran Educator District Coordinator with Texas Veteran Commission?
Yes, I can. My position came out of the 83rd legislation of the Texas state leadership, and I've been in my role for over 7 years. And fortunately, the Texas Veterans Commission education program is a program that the legislators and our leadership in the state of Texas wanted to ensure that all the veterans that are Texans and their family and children and all those with whom have shared the lifetime of a veteran, the state wanted to ensure that we were able to take care of those folks and give them the opportunity to further contribute to the great state by achieving an education and or certification or certificate to improve their capabilities to be productive and add to the great benefit and welfare of the state with educated members who have borne the burden of serving in uniform and who want to come back home and transition back to home. So again, the Texas Veterans Commission Education Program connects Texas veterans to higher education and technical training opportunities.
Very nice. So your target audience are individuals who served. Are family members included?
Yes, ma'am. We have family members, initially the veteran, be it male or female, the spouse, and the children. And we've had situations where grandparents ended up being the sole provider for children, for whatever reason that might be, and we have the abilities and capabilities to afford those grandparents to transfer their benefits to the children to ensure that they have a good step up in their opportunities to receive an education and improve their lifestyle. The education department, what we have that's really unique in the state of Texas is that we administer a program called the Hazelwood Act benefit, which goes into effect when a veteran and or the family members have utilized all of their federal GI Bill benefit or have them exhausted. The Hazelwood Act provides for those veterans 150 semester hours of tuition, and this is only for institutions that are state institutions. Unfortunately, our private institution and some of our online programs, this program won't cover, but it does a great benefit to those individuals that want to go back to school and maybe don't have the federal benefits to utilize that. The state and our public schools are on board with making sure they can help with veterans getting an education and all their family members. And the best part about what the Texas Veterans Commission provides for all of our services is that it's no cost. You can find many services out in the civilian marketplace, but they usually have a price tag, and the state provides these services as a benefit and as respect given to all of our Texas citizens and veterans in total. We have health care advisories, advocates assist veterans in resolving VA medical care issues, including appointments, medication, treatment, providing one-on-one personalized assistance to help navigate and assist people that may be apprehensive about going and getting engaged with the VA system. They help veterans through the VA processing and filing paperwork and navigating on their behalf necessary with medical staff. And it is just a great program that there is a wealth of information on the Texas Veterans webpage that If a person wanted to look that information up, they could, and they could read all about how that benefit may work for them and or work for their family members as a legacy portion.
Okay. What would you instruct a military or veteran listener to do to sign up or to qualify or to participate in the program? Now, you did say they can look it up online, but if they wanted to reach out to someone or if they wanted to get more information, what would you instruct them to do?
Well, one of the very things that a person could do is they could send an email to our department, and the email address for that would be education, which is spelled EDUCATION, at TVC, which stands for Texas Veterans Commission, period, Texas, TEXAS, period, gov, G-O-V. So the email address for any question a person may have that's related to education or claims or employment, if they send it to that email address I just gave you, it will get routed to the correct department and our service department in the Texas Veterans Commission to help answer the question and make contact with whoever is the author of the email. So again, it would be education at TVC, period, Texas, spelled out, period, gov, G-O-V. Or they could call 512-463-3168. And that is the education department's number as well. And we have 5 individuals that will answer that phone and direct the individual's inquiry to the correct department to ensure that their question is responded to, and every opportunity to provide assistance and support will be provided to them. Having an honorable discharge is one of the key elements in any of these programs, whether they're state or federal programs, that a veteran must make sure they have to qualify.
And tell me, how long before the Hazelwood expires?
Well, for the veteran or the sponsor, it does not expire. Now, based on the rules and regulations, anyone that is 25 years or older, generally benefits do not carry over beyond that, unless there's some mitigating or extenuating circumstances, i.e. a person with, disabilities. But the great thing about the Hazelwood, if a veteran has been designated on their benefits as far as their ratings with the VA, if they are rated 100% total and permanent, then the benefits do not have an expiration date as far as the Hazelwood is concerned.
Okay, and just for clarity, when you mentioned the GI Bill, a service member has up to 10 years to use the GI Bill. Is that correct?
Yes. And, and that's fluctuated from 10 to 12 to 15, depending on what year periods people may have gone in. Anyone that is joining the military now in 2002 or the beginning of the fiscal year back in 2019, some of those young men and women will fall under what they call the Forever GI Bill, which means that instead of it having an expiration date, they could use it well into their 50s and 60s if they haven't used up all of their 36 or 48 months worth of educational benefits, depending on their program.
Okay. And so typically 10 years or maybe the Forever GI Bill, but the Hazelwood is not the same. The Hazelwood does not expire.
Not for the sponsor themselves. No, it does not.
Okay.
So if a veteran is 80 years old and wanted to go back to school and had joined the service as their point of entry as a resident of the state of Texas, that is, again, one of the linchpins that a person has to meet. You would have had to have been a resident of the state of Texas and or your home record as the state of Texas upon your entry into military service.
Gosh, I was just about to say, hey, I could take advantage of the Hazelwood, but not because I joined from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So it doesn't apply to someone like me, right?
No, not unless you started a completely new contract and your home record had to have been in the state of Texas. Then that new contract, that new DD-214 would show your point of entry would have been the state of Texas. But generally speaking, when we just talk in just straight generalities, the way the legislation and the wording of it, a person would have had to have been a resident of the state of Texas and their point of entry being the state of Texas. We have had young people who, for whatever reason, had to go visit grandma. And then while they were in grandma, even though they were temporarily at grandma's house in another state, their home of record, where they would get all their mail and their parents had filed them on their income tax as living under that household in the state of Texas, an individual in that situation could say, well, my home of record is the state of Texas, even though I went into the military in Kansas City, Missouri at a MEP station. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to answering the question. Yes, we make it as black and white as possible, but there's always those gray areas that take a little research and a little understanding of what a person is looking at when they're reading the DD-214 and what each and every one of those blocks on the DD-214 mean to a decision maker, whether it's one of my contemporaries or one of the schools or colleges that a person is going to. They're going to look very, very closely at those documents to see if they meet the basic criteria that will allow them to utilize the Hazelwood.
So I know we don't have raw figures. Do you see those folks that are from the state of Texas taking advantage of the Hazelwood Act?
You know, I do. But interesting, even with the Hazelwood, it's like the GI Bill. When you have a thriving economy and you have opportunities for people to take and utilize those skills that they learn in the military, as you know, our number one skill is being able to work well with others, have leadership under stress or situations that are not common. Veterans are able to get employed immediately, all within a short amount of time upon their return back to the civilian marketplace. And the more skills that these veterans are able to bring back to the market and the market has demand for, they are going to get employed so that they can continue to take care of their families. And it has its ebbs and flows. And again, not every individual is college bound or college capable.
Sure,
we are finding that we're in great need of blue collar that are very, very high paying positions. And we are finding many veterans are choosing to go to schools to, say, for instance, get their CDLs to be either a local driver or a cross the road long haul driver. And because they feel comfortable being in that environment where they're by themselves, but yet they have tremendous responsibilities of moving product from one point to another point. And so they're able to use their education benefits to achieve those skill levels and those certifications that will afford them employment. We're finding veterans that like auto mechanic work. And if you've ever been to an auto dealership, you wonder, wow, how is this place staying in business when they have such a small sales lot? But if you go in the back and you see how large their service department is, you'll understand that's where their money is being made on servicing and replacing parts or repairing parts. And it's a highly skilled blue-collar job that takes a lot of intellectual capacity, because most cars are either electric or have electric components, and since you can't really work on an engine without plugging it into a computer system, most of our veterans have computer savvy understanding of how to read and provide diagnostic and make an analysis and assessment of what really needs to be done. And those jobs pay extremely well for young men that like working with their hands, like mechanical things. And so across the board, it's pretty even. And when our veterans do end up going to college, they do extremely well. They have a high GPA, a grade point average in their academic pursuits. And I think people will be very, very surprised when they realize that most of our veterans are taking high-skilled educational opportunities, meaning they're in the arts and the science and the STEMS programs, or they're doing humanities and the arts, and they're just doing exceptionally well from my observation and my interactions with the institutions. Most presidents, chancellors, deans of colleges are very, very happy and pleased having the veterans, because of their age and maturity and worldliness, doing as well as they do in college. And having the GI Bill really places kind of corral around the veterans. They have to get in and get out. They can't spend 6-7 years trying to get through a college education when you only have certain months that you can use your GI Bill. You've got to get in. You've got to keep at least 12 to 15 hours to be a full-time student, depending on where you are, what your academic pursuits are. So our veterans they make us very, very proud when they're on these colleges and universities, are going to a trade school and learning high-tech skills with computer programming, aviation logistics, over-road logistics, command and control. Veterans do exceptionally well.
Sure. Sure. I am a lifetime learner. Matter of fact, I am still trying to find more money to go back to school. You made a very valid point earlier. You indicated that some veterans or some transitioning military are not necessarily college bound or up to the challenge of academics. I totally get that. So when we talked about the transitioning military individual, I'm hearing a lot more nowadays that it's hard, that transition. And I know for me, it was really hard. And this is one of the questions that I ask to everyone that participates on the show that is a veteran. What are your thoughts on the Department of Veteran Affairs report that there are 6,000 veterans a year that are taking their own lives for a variety of reasons? And I identify that we all have dark places. What would you say to a veteran that may be in a dark place?
Well, I would let them know that with the Texas Veterans Commission, we also have mental health providers that are trained and able to provide technical assistance to mental health providers, public safety workers, Texas justice system, community organizations, even veterans or those who are affected by traumatic effects that they may have experienced, that there are organizations out there all over that sometimes veterans are just too proud to say, I need help. And every time I see one, I will ask them and say, hey, we're all in this together. Mm-hmm. Well, first and foremost, we are citizen soldiers. Mm-hmm. So just because we have the label doesn't make us impervious to having feelings and
that's right.
doubt. And so I've always told a person, it is a very difficult thing to sometimes really, really peel the mask back and look at the individual in the mirror that's looking back at you. If you're a veteran that has a family, you have to sometimes assess how did the veterans that came back from World War I, World War II, Korea, how did they internalize all that they were going through? And the few that I was able to talk to and even talk to my dad, what example am I setting as a parent to my children? I know that what I've gone through, no human being really should go through, but it's happened, and I have a family, and I want to do right by my family, and have faith. Our moral compass, sometimes we tamp it down because it's not socially correct or it's not publicly correct to tell somebody that, you're in love with someone or you have faith, strong faith, mm-hmm. but you can't say it out loud. That the most difficult thing that veterans that I have come in contact with is just to say, I do need help. Or shedding a tear is cleansing, and there's no need to hold those back. Sometimes you feel the weight of the world being lifted off your shoulders if you can get to a quiet place, mm-hmm. or get somebody you trust. And we all have that one or two people that we trust. Sure. And just saying, man, I am scared. I am scared of the next thought that's in my mind. You are not alone. And there's somebody that will listen. You just never know. A smile, as my mom would say, costs nothing. But it can be the most important thing to the person who sees it. And you may never know what you have done for that individual, that you've looked them in the eye and recognized them as being value. And so I try to live by that mantra of having a smile on my face, although I ache because of the pains that I've experienced from combat. But I choose to have a positive outlook on life. Sure. Because you hit it right on the nail. There are some dark places that in the depths of our own mind we take ourselves. You just hope that you're able to keep enough vision on the trail that you came down, mm-hmm. so if you have to go back, you can.
Right.
That's all we have to do, just ask for help.
Well, that's great advice, Mr. Dwiggins, and I thank you. I thank you so much for sharing that. I am even more grateful for your continued service. After serving 32 years in the United States Marine Corps, and you still carried on, continuing to serve. That speaks volumes. And if we can chip away at that 6,000 a year just by educating and encouraging, I think that if more veterans and active duty members know that they are not alone, we can give someone hope. So in that, you're continuing your service by offering education and being the conduit in which people can receive it. So again, I'm ever so grateful for what you do and continue to do.
Well, Dr. K, your program is phenomenal. There's a lot of folks in my organization that have tapped into it and concur. So continue to do what you do. You are an ambassador, and Messenger is something that we all need to just look to every once in a while.
Look, just don't shoot her.
You know, we won't ask you to run the marathon either.
Well, Mr. Dwiggins, again, I thank you so much for participating on the show. Can you share one more time where listeners can find you, where they can get more information about the Hazelwood Act?
Yes, ma'am. If people are really interested, they can call 512-463-3168 or email whatever question they may have to education@TVC, which stands for Texas Veterans Commission, Texas, spelled out, .gov, G-O-V. And again, if someone is interested in employment, entrepreneurship, mental health, women's programs, anything that you could probably think of, the Texas Veterans Commission will be able to provide or assist getting an answer to someone related to those subjects. If you can think of it, ask for it. And if you're ever out and you decide that you feel lucky, make sure you buy a Texas lottery, because most of the money that comes to these grants that the state of Texas is able to provide back to veterans comes from those scratch-offs.
Really?
And it is, yes, ma'am, and it is solely to support Texas veterans. That's what's so unique about the Texas Veterans Lottery Program. The Texas Veterans Commission is leading the charge to take care of our citizens any way we possibly can.
Wow, awesome information. Absolutely awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show with me today and educating the listeners and the veterans and the reservists and the active duty members about the educational benefits that awaits them, and that it's available, and that Texas Veteran Commission is doing everything that they can as an organization to make that transition easier relative to attaining their education and making them more marketable in the field. Thank you. Again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Continue to do what you do, and let me know if I can support you in the future.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Well, listeners, this concludes this episode of the Doctor's Corner with retired Colonel Bill Dwiggins of the United States Marine Corps. Mr. Dwiggins continues his service by ensuring his brothers and sisters in arms and families thereof have a fair shot of intellectually contributing to society and the workforce with educational benefits specifically designed for people who have served. To learn more about your educational benefits or employment opportunities, simply call 512-463-3168. Again, that number is 512-463-3168. Or email education@tvc.texas.gov. That's education@TVC, which stands for Texas Veteran Commission.texas.gov. Life already has challenges, an abundance of challenges, many, a plethora. But don't let education be one of them. Not when you have an entire organization of people who are here to assist you and, like Mr. Dwiggins, can actually relate to you. You served, you deserve. Thank you again for listening in to The Doctor's Corner. Be sure to share this link with others. To learn more about The Doctor's Corner, feel free to email thedoctorscorner2018@gmail.com. Listen, like, and subscribe on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, Spotify, Radio Public, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio. To advertise on this show, simply call 214-631-9253. Again, that number is 214-631-9253.